All right, tell me.
Well, the trouble is this: people come to our house and they come for dinner and they get bad food. What do these people think of me? I'm their bank manager.
But what can I do, George? I know the food isn't very good. Next time I will cook the dinner myself.
Acha,
No, you
mute
can't do
yourself.
that.
Mute
No,
yourself. Yes.
no, you can't do
Continue.
that. You are my wife and you must meet these people
Good
and you
morning.
can't spend your time in the kitchen.
Yes, continue, continue. Yes, continue.
Mama Kancha is not reading.
आकांक्षा क्या बनेगी?
Ma'am, she is Mrs. Heel.
नहीं, she is not Mrs. Hill. Vijay Lakshmi is
मैम
Mrs. Hill.
यस मैम मैंने पढ़ना शुरू किया था तब हम वो पढ़ दी थी.
जल्दी पढ़ो ना, आप लोग इतना टाइम नहीं है. Read fast. Okay, Mrs. Hill. But Annie has been for us for a long time, George. Okay, I think I should start again.
Mr. Heel.
Ma'am, can
Mrs.
I?
No, no, no. You people,
Ma'am,
no
Janvi can read. Ma'am, we will
coordination
lead.
is there.
Ma'am,
No
can I?
coordination. No,
Ma'am, we will
not at
lead
all.
fast.
No, I will read it. Chalo. You people cannot do all these kind of things. Now, Mr. Hill,
Explain in Hindi.
this coffee has a terrible taste. Why can't Annie make good coffee? It's quite easy. You can show her. Now, Mr. Hill is not satisfied with Annie. Is not Mrs. Says, I have shown you that she makes good coffee for a few days and then she forgets again. I'm afraid she isn't very clever. Mrs. Hill says, and secondly, she is getting old. So she forgets how to make good coffee. Mr. Hill, you are quite right. She isn't very clever and she is bad cook. The lunch was terrible too. I wanted to talk to you about it. And then Mr. Hill again says that even the lunch was very bad. Terrible means not good. And I wanted to talk to you about Annie. Must you do it now? It's Sunday afternoon. Mr. Hill, no, it can't wait. I must speak to you about Annie. Now he wants to speak to his wife regarding Annie. Mrs. Hill, all right, tell me. Mr. Hill, well, the trouble is this. People come to our house, they come for dinner, and they get bad food. What do these people think of me? I'm their bank manager. Now, Mr. Hill, he tells his wife that because he is the bank manager and people are coming to his house, he cannot serve bad dinner to them. That is not good food. If they are not getting good food, so that will be bad for his prestige because he is the bank manager. Mrs. Hill, but what can I do, George? Now, what is the name of Mr. Hill? George. I know the food isn't very good. Next time I'll cook the dinner myself. Now, Mrs. Hill, she says that if Annie is not able to cook good dinner, then she said, okay, I will cook the dinner for when the people will come, I will be cooking the dinner. So Mr. Hill says, no, you can't do that. You are my wife. You must feed these people. You can't spend time in kitchen. Now, Mr. Hill, he says that because you are the manager, wife of the bank manager, you cannot spend time in kitchen when the guests are there. So you have to meet the people. Mrs. Hill, what is the answer then?
देख लेना पीछे.
So, Mrs. Hill, but Annie has been with us for a long time, George, nearly 20 years. We can't do this to her. She isn't a young woman now. How will she find a new job? Now, Mr. Hill, he says that I don't want Annie anymore because she does not make good coffee, neither does she make good dinner. So, we must have a new cook. But Mrs. Hill is not ready for this because she says that Annie has served them for 20 years, which is quite a long time. And so now she is also getting old. And now at this age, she won't be getting a good job. So she cannot ask her to go away. Mr. Hill, I don't know. You must go. Things are different now. I'm the manager of the big bank. We must have a good cook. Mrs. Hill, you are different now, George. You have changed. You don't care about people. Now, Mrs. Hill is reminding George that you are no more good like you used to be. Now you have changed and you have stopped caring for people. We should care for the people who are working for us because she is working for them. So she should be cared also. Mr. Hill, I care about the bank and I care about the customers. So Mr. Hill, he says that I don't care about Annie and all. I care about the bank where I am working and I care about the customers who give me business. So Annie must go. Explain the matter to her. She will understand. Give her 3 months. She can find a new job. And Mr. Hill, he says that you give some time to Annie and she will find a new job. 3 months' time should be given to her. Mrs. Hill, it won't be easy. Mr. Hill, will you tell her today? Mrs. Hill, can I do it tomorrow? Mr. Hill, no, you will forget about it. Do it today. Mrs. Hill, all right, I'll speak to her today. Poor woman. Now, why did she say poor woman? Can anyone tell me?
Ma'am,
Because she,
yes, ma'am,
ma'am,
poor
because
woman
she had
means
to
Bichari.
leave his job.
Because she's feeling sorry for her. Yes, she's feeling sorry for her because she won't get a good job now, and Mr. Hill is asking Mrs. Hill to remove her. Mr. Hill, I feel rather tired. I think I'll have a little sleep. Mrs. Hill, you stay here. I have something to do. I won't disturb you. Mrs. Hill, you stay here and I have some work to do. I am going. Mrs. Hill goes out of the room. Mr. Hill puts his feet on the chair and closes his eyes. He is soon asleep. Now he's taking a nap. Nap means a short sleep. So the scene changes. Scene two. Mr. Hill is still asleep. There is a knock at the door. Mr. Hill hears the knock and wakes up. Now, Mr. Hill, he wakes up and what did he see? Mr. Hill, who's there? Come in. Two men come into the room. Now, when he is taking a nap, what happens? He sees a dream. In the dream, he sees that two people have come inside his house, and the two men who come into the room are first is Briggs, the assistant manager of the bank, and the second is Winter, the cashier. So two people are the cashier and the assistant manager. Briggs, good afternoon, sir. We are not disturbing you, are we? Mr. Hill, why? It's Winter. What is it? Is it something important? Now he's asking those people that why have you come here when it is a Sunday afternoon and yes, it is Sunday afternoon and
I
I can talk to you later.
I was
Yes,
having a little sleep.
yes. Anyone wants to know anything?
No, ma'am.
Explain.
Children, please don't disturb. We have to finish this syllabus fast. Okay? Please don't disturb in like this. So he says, Mr. Hill, I hope it isn't trouble. The bank is it on fire? Now he's asking, is the bank on fire or what? That you have come to me on a Sunday afternoon. Mr. Hill laughs at his joke, but Briggs and Winter do not laugh. Now they are serious. Mr. Hill laughs, but they are serious. Briggs, no, sir, the bank isn't on fire, but we had to see you. We want to talk to you. We had to see you means we had to come to meet you. and we want to talk to you. Now, Mr. Hill, today it's Sunday. Can't it wait? You can tell me tomorrow. Come and see me in my office. He said, Monday morning you can come to my office and you can talk whatever you want to talk. But what did Winter say? Winter says, it can't wait, sir. We must talk to you today. Mr. Hill, I don't understand. Well, sit down, both of you. And then he asked them to sit down because they say that it is very urgent. So they have to talk. And now what's the matter? Briggs, it's not easy to begin, sir. Now Briggs is telling him that it is not easy. Why? Can anyone tell me why it is not easy for Briggs to talk about that? If
Because
anyone has read the story, you must be knowing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
ma'am,
Ma'am,
because
Briggs
he had to tell that he had to resign the his job.
Yes,
and she
good, good.
and he
Because
had
he
gotten
had to
a
tell him
3
that he
months.
had to resign. Yes. Winter, shall I tell him, Briggs? One of us must do it. Briggs, no, I'll do it. I'm the assistant manager. Well, sir, we think you ought to resign. Ought to. Ought to, I have already taught you, children.
Yes, ma'am.
Hope you must be knowing
Work
the meaning.
permission.
Ma'am used
Yes,
to.
Used to.
yes, you have to
Used
resign.
to.
Yes. So he said, I'm the assistant manager and I want to tell you that you must resign. Now, Mr. Hill is surprised. Resign? Leave the bank? What are you talking about? Is this a joke, Briggs? Briggs, no, it isn't a joke. Mr. Hill, now 1 minute, please. It's Sunday afternoon. You come to my house and disturb me, and then you tell me that I ought to resign. Now he's saying that you are telling me to resign. I'm the manager and you are an assistant manager, and you are asking me to resign. Winter, we are very sorry, sir. We know it's Sunday, but we had to tell you. Now, Winter is saying sorry, and he said that, but we have to tell you. Now, Mr. Hill, but you can't do this. I'm the manager. You are only an assistant manager, Brick, and Winter is only a cashier. You can't speak to me like this. Briggs, we are doing it for the bank, sir. Winter, it will be a good thing for the bank, sir. Believe me. What will be a good thing, children? Who will tell me?
Ma'am, he had to
Who will tell
resign
me?
the bank.
It will be a good thing for the bank. What will be a good for bank?
Ma'am,
If he
Let
resigns,
Mr.
the
Hill will
yes.
manager
resign
If
resign.
he resigns, that will be good for the bank.
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 Yes. Now, children, after now onward, he will give the reason why he should resign. So if you have a pencil, you can keep a pencil in your hand. I'll keep telling you where to underline. Okay. Briggs, we are not right, sir. We don't need a holiday. Sorry, we are all right, sir. We don't need a holiday. Now he's saying that you are speaking like this. I think you should take a holiday and take a rest. So Briggs says, no, 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 everything is all right. We don't need a holiday, but we must have your answer today, sir. Will you resign? And he's saying that I must get the answer. You have to resign. And what do you say about it? Mr. Hill, it's like a bad dream. Why must I resign? What have I done? Tell me that. And Mr. Hill, he says that this is just like a bad dream for me. How can you say that I have to resign? I'm doing my work and I have to resign. Now, Briggs, you don't manage the bank well. Now, please underline this. Don't manage the bank. This is one point why he should resign. And please, यहाँ पर बात नहीं करिए आप लोग. यहाँ Mr. Hill, of course, I manage the bank well. Thousands of people use our bank. Business is not is very good. Mr. Hill, of course, I manage the bank well. He is saying that no, 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 I manage the bank well, and uh, people use our bank and they give good business also. Mr. Brigg, oh, we know that, sir, but we do all the work. Now, Brigg is saying we are the one who is doing all the work. You are not doing any work. We are the one. They use our bank because we work hard. That means the staff of the bank, they work hard, and that is why the people are giving business. Winter, and you are not nice to the people in the bank. Now, again, underline this, not nice to the people in the bank. Underline this. This is the second reason why he should resign. Not nice to the people in the bank. You are nice to the customers, but not to us. No one likes you. Now he says that you may be nice to the customers, but you are not nice to the staff of the bank. So people working in the bank don't like you. Mr. Hill, oh, I know they don't like me. They have to work hard and they don't like that. Mr. Hill says that because I asked them to work hard, that is why they want to remove me. Winter, but you don't work hard. Again, next point, third point. You don't work hard. Third point. Mr. Hill, of course I do. Briggs, oh no, sir. For example, you come late in the morning. Now, this is the fourth point. You come late in the morning. Fifth point, winter, and you often leave early. You come late in the morning, you often leave early. This is another point. Keep underlining, children. Briggs, and you take 2 or 3 hours for lunch. Now, again, underline this also. Take 2, 3 hours for lunch. We spend all day in the bank, but you are never there. Mr. Hill, but I am the manager. That's part of my job. I have to look after important people. I have to have lunch with them. It's good for business. Briggs, it's pleasure, sir. You are very fond of good food. Mr. Hill, I won't listen to this. Now he said that I go out for lunch because I have to be with them so that I get business for the bank. But you, Winter, but you must. I shall write to the head office about you. Then you will have to resign. And now, Mr. Hill, he is saying that I will write about you people to the head office and then you will have to resign. Instead of me, you will have to resign. So what does Briggs say? Briggs says, we have already written about you, sir. He said, we have already written. हम पहले ही लिख चुके हैं आपके बारे में कि आपको resign करना चाहिए because of these reasons which I asked you to underline. Winter, yes, sir. We explained the matter and they agree with us. Now the management is ready. They agreed with us and they said that, yes, Mr. Hill must resign. Are you following, children? Any problem
Yes,
anywhere?
ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Anyone
Yes,
facing
ma'am.
any
No,
problem?
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Raise your
No,
hand.
ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Briggs, we had to do it, sir. We were only thinking of the bank. Now, Briggs says, because we are loyal to the bank, so we were thinking about the bank. And that is why we had to write about you. Winter, and they agree, you must resign. And the management has agreed that you must resign. Mr. Hill, but they can't do this to me. I have spent 30 years in the bank. Brig, think of the bank, sir. It will be a happier place without you. He said, Mr. Hill said, I have worked for 30 years. I've given 30 years to the bank, and now you are asking me to resign. He said, uh, Brig said, you think about the bank will be a happy place if you are not there. Mr. Hill, but what am I going to do? I'm not young man. How can I find a new job? Now, Mr. Hill is, children, one thing did you feel?
Yes,
Whatever he
ma'am.
said for Annie, same thing is happening with
Yes,
him.
ma'am. Yes,
He
ma'am.
was also not thinking about Annie. After 20 years of service, he wants to remove her. She's getting old. She won't find a new job. And the same thing is happening with Mr. Hill also here. He has worked
Yes,
for
ma'am.
30 years and now he is worried that at this age he won't get a good job. I won't be able to find a new job. Mr. Hill, I'm not sure. Briggs, but you promised to resign, don't you, sir? Mr. Hill, well, I must. The head office agrees with you. Winter, thank you, sir. Briggs, we are sorry about this, sir. Briggs and Winter stand up. Briggs, you will come to the office tomorrow, won't you, sir? Mr. Hill, yes, I'll be there. Now, Mr. Hill, he agrees to resign. And he says that when you come to tomorrow, then we will decide. But please come on time, sir. Now he is reminding him that you must come on time because every day you are late. So you must come. Brig and Winter say good afternoon and go out. Mr. Hill sit with his head in his hand. After a time, Mrs. Hill comes in. She's wearing a heavy coat and she has a bag in her hand. Who is talking? Akansha, please mute yourself. Mute yourself. Vijay Lakshmi, mute yourself. Yes. Mr. Hill. Oh, it's you, dear. Briggs and Winter were here. They left a short time ago. Now, when they left in the now, children, this is all in the dream. What is going on is Mr. Hill is dreaming, and in the dream only he sees that Briggs and Winter have gone, and Mrs. Hill enters the room. Now, Mrs. Hill, yes, I saw them when they were going out. Mr. Hill, they came to tell me something. It isn't very pleasant. After a moment, I have to resign from the bank. Now, Mr. Hill tells Mrs. Hill that he has to resign from the bank. And Mrs. Hill says that, yes, she knows because they have already told her. Couldn't they wait? Did you? They tell you the reason too. Yes, the people in the bank don't like you. I'm not surprised. And Mrs. Hill also says that I'm not surprised if people don't like you. I have spent all my life in the bank and now I have lost my job. Now, Mr. Hill notices that his wife is wearing a coat. Oh, are you going out? And you have got a bag. Where are you going? Now, Mr. Hill notices that his wife is carrying a bag and wearing a coat. And he asks her that, are you going out somewhere? So Mrs. Hill, she says, I need a holiday. I'm going to spend a few days with my sister. So Mr. Hill, he says that at this time, when I have lost my job, you are leaving me and going out. I can't help you. And I must have a holiday. I can't wait. But you can have a holiday later. We will go together. Mr. Hill said that later on, both of us can go. Why are you going now? Mrs. Hill, where will you get the money for the holiday? You have lost your job. It won't be easy to find a new job. You are not a young man. Now, Mrs. Hill says you are talking about going on a holiday. I don't think you will get a new job because you are not young. And from where will you get the money to go on a holiday? Mr. Hill, I've got 3 months. I'll find something. I hope you are right. You are leaving me because I'm in trouble. When are you coming back? I have no idea. I'll write and tell you. But who's going to look after me? There is Annie. Speak to her nicely, and perhaps she will stay. Well, goodbye, George. Write to me when you have a job. And Mrs. Hill, she leaves the home, telling Mr. Hill that when you get a job, you write to me, I'll come back. Mr. Hill goes out of the room. Mr. Hill, he's talking to himself. This is a monologue. This is called monologue. Monologue means talking to yourself only. This is a terrible afternoon. I've lost my job and now my wife has gone too. There is a knock at the door and Annie comes in. Now, Annie was here to look after Mr. Hill. So she comes inside the room. Mr. Hill, what is it, Annie? Do you want to leave too? Now, Mr. Hill thought that if his wife has left him, then maybe the maid will also leave him. So he says that, do you also want to leave? Annie, leave, sir. I came about the tea, sir. It's almost 4 o'clock. Shall I bring tea? Now, Annie said, why should I leave? I have come to do my duty. It's 4 o'clock and it is your tea time. I've come to ask you, shall I bring tea for you? Mr. Hill, so you don't want to leave? Are you sure? Annie, no, of course not, sir. I'm very, very happy here. Mr. Hill, I've lost my job. Did you know that? Yes, sir, Mrs. Hill told me. And my wife has gone for a long holiday. I know, sir, but she will come back. I'll look after you while she is in there. Now, Mrs. Annie, she promises to look after Mr. Hill while his wife is away. Mr. Hill, I won't have much money. Perhaps I won't be able to pay you. Now, Mr. Hill says that I won't be able to give you money also, your salary. So Annie says that it doesn't matter, sir. I've saved some money and so I don't need any now. But I want to stay here, sir. It's my home. Thank you, Annie. Salvi, please mute yourself. Mute yourself, Salvi. Mr. Hill, thank you, Annie. Shall I bring tea now, sir? Later, please. It's about half an hour. Very well, sir. Annie goes out. Mr. Hill puts his feet on the chair again and closes his eyes. Again, he goes back to sleep. Now, scene three. Mrs. Hill comes into the room. Her husband is still asleep. Now, Mr. Hill is still sleeping, and Mrs. Hill enters the room. Now, children, can anyone tell me, has Mrs. Hill gone away?
No, ma'am.
Yes?
No.
It was
No,
dream.
ma'am.
No.
No,
It
ma'am.
was a
It
dream.
was a dream.
Yes.
It
Scene
was his
two, whole
dream.
of scene two was a dream. Yes. In the dream, he was seeing all that. So Mrs. Hill is still there in the house. Mrs. Hill comes into the room. Her husband is still awake, asleep. Mrs. Hill, George, it's almost 4:30. Mr. Hill, what's that? 4:30. Oh, it's you, dear. Yes, of course it's me. Then you haven't gone to your sister. Now, Mr. Hill was thinking about the dream. He was thinking that his wife has left him. So he's asking, you have not gone to your sister's home. Are you still there? Now, Mrs. Hill is confused. She is asking, what are you talking about? I haven't been out of the house. You have been asleep all afternoon. And then Mr. Hill, he realizes, he says, oh, I have been sleeping. Have I? Then I was dreaming. And he remembers the dream. It wasn't a very pleasant dream. And then Mr. Hill, he feels that it was not a pleasant dream. It was a very bad dream. Mrs. Hill, you must tell me about it. Shall we have tea now? And Mrs. Hill, he says that now we shall have tea and you tell me about your dream. Mr. Hill, that's a good idea. I need a cup of tea. Mrs. Hill rings the bell for Annie. Now, children, please keep yourself mute. Akanksha, your mic is on. Now, Mrs. Hill rings the bell for Annie. Mr. Hill, by the way, dear, have you spoken to Annie yet? Mrs. Hill, not yet. Give me a chance. I have been busy, but I haven't forgotten. I'll tell her this evening. Now, Mr. Hill, he asks, first thing is it, he asked that, have you told Annie to look for another job? So Mrs. Hill, she says that she has not got the chance to talk to her, and today evening only she will be talking to her. Now, what do you think Mr. Hill will say? Can anyone tell me? Yes? Anyone wants to say?
Ma'am, he says we ought to keep her because she has been with us a long time and she may not got a new job.
Yes, because now he can realize in which position she is, because he has already faced it in his dream. So Mr. Hill, he says, I was thinking about it again. Perhaps we ought to keep her. She has been with us for a long time and she may not get a new job. Now he says that I will not ask her to leave because she is getting old and she needs a good job. Mrs. Hill, I told you that, dear. Mr. Hill, I like you. Now, of course, she's not a good cook, but she works hard. Now, Mrs. Hill, again, she make him realize that although she is not a good cook, but she works hard.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, can you hear me, children?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Hill, I agree with you. Now, of course, she works hard. Mrs. Hill, yes, she works very hard. Mr. Hill, perhaps she needs a help in the house. We can get someone. Mrs. Hill, that's a nice idea. Annie will like that. But what about your dinners? Who will cook when your friends come? Oh, the dinners aren't important. We won't ask people very often. I'm glad I need to cook for the dinners. But George, why have you changed suddenly? You are quite different now. Mr. Hill, am I? I'm glad you say that. Is it just a dream? You must tell me about it. No, I don't want to know it. Won't forget it. Shall I bring tea now, madam? Annie comes in and she says that now, shall I bring tea. Now, ultimately, what solution did Mr. Hill find for Annie? He said that I think Annie should be given a help, and we can keep another person who is going to assist Annie in her work. Then I think she will be faster in her work, and that Annie will also like it. So ultimately, they decide that Annie will continue with them, and they will keep another person who is going to assist Annie in the household work. With this, your chapter is complete. I hope everyone has understood the lesson.
Yes,
Anyone
Yes,
ma'am.
having
ma'am.
any
Yes,
problem?
ma'am.
No,
Any
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
queries?
No,
You
ma'am.
are most welcome to ask. Yes. Okay. Now we will do understanding the play. Answer the following question in 30 words. Why was Mr. Hill upset with Annie? Raise your
Annie
hand
was
if you are
not.
not going
Mr. Annie was
Because
to. You are
she
not going to answer.
Mr. Hill
Not answer.
was upset with Annie.
Raise your hand. Akansha,
Ma-
please
um,
raise your
Mis-
hand.
Mr. Hill was upset with Annie because Annie was not preparing good food for them.
Yes, because she was not a good cook and she did not make good coffee also. That is why Mr. Hill was upset with Annie. What did Mr. Hill expect his wife to do in the parties? Yes, who would like to answer? Aditya Hansraj?
Mr. Hill accepted his wife to meet the guests in the parties, so she
Yes.
must not spend her time in the kitchen when the parties were on.
Okay, okay. Only 30 words. Huh? So Mr. Hill expected that his wife must meet the people in the party instead of working in the kitchen. Okay. See, how can we say that Mrs. Hill was a kind-hearted, considerate lady? Vijay Lakshmi.
Yes, ma'am. When Mr. Hill told his wife that Annie should go and they must hire a new cook, she objected, saying that Annie had worked with them for 20 years and she was capable of cooking for her to
For
find a
20
new job.
years, yes.
She also tried for her to find a new job.
Yes. So how can we say that
For she
Mrs.
also
Hill
tried
was
to convince Mr. Hill that it would be difficult for her to find a new job at
new
such an
job?
old
Yes.
age.
Yes. So these things show that she was a very kind-hearted and considerate lady. Now, what was Annie's reaction when she came to know that Mr. Hill had lost his job? Pavni Patel,